Mr. Melvin Yong.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I stand in support of the bill. Singapore is an open and connected country, and we receive well over 17 million visitors a year. While our openness has benefited the economy, a trade-off that we accept is that it puts us at an increased risk of suffering from infectious diseases that may be carried over from other countries. Many members of this House, and indeed many Singaporeans, would remember the SARS outbreak in 2003 and how we narrowly escaped MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, in 2012. The review of the Infectious Diseases Act is thus timely, but I have some clarifications on the bill. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the bill provides the Director of Medical Services broad and sweeping powers to require persons, whether entering, staying within, or leaving Singapore, to undergo a medical examination. The bill also allows for a person to be subjected to medical examinations over a period of time and be placed under medical surveillance. While I fully agree that this is necessary and critical in the event of an infectious disease outbreak, there needs to be a safeguard in place to ensure that this power does not go unchecked. Could the Minister clarify if there are or would be any safeguards in place, or if there is a maximum number of consecutive days that a person can be subjected to medical surveillance? The Director of Medical Services is also allowed to direct persons involved in professions that are deemed to likely cause the spread of any infectious diseases to stop carrying on with their occupation, trade, or business. This is similarly a directive that would affect business continuity as well as workers' livelihood. Could the Ministry consider specifying a maximum period of days for such a stop work order so that businesses can take this into account as part of their emergency preparedness plans? Such orders can be reviewed, and a new order could be reissued if the situation still warrants it. With freelancers and workers in the gig economy not covered by hospitalization leave offered by employers, there is a large possibility of a loss of income following such directives. Can the Ministry consider setting up a fund that would help mitigate such an impact for this group of workers? Mr. Deputy Speaker, when an infectious disease pandemic is in full swing, many of our available resources will be stretched to the utmost limits. We experienced this during the SARS outbreak. To better aid the appointed health officers, some of whom would have to perform contact tracing, I'd like to suggest establishing a pool of volunteer health officers. Let me elaborate. Organizations can be large and have multiple work sites. It can therefore be challenging and time-consuming for a health officer to perform contact tracing without some forthcoming help. Also, the number of health officers that we have is limited. I would therefore like the Ministry to consider establishing a volunteer health officer scheme. The desired outcome is for every large organization to have an appointed volunteer health officer who can aid the Ministry in contact tracing, as well as help to disseminate health advisories in the event of a crisis. This pool of volunteer health officers should be provided with adequate training to ensure that they have the required skills to perform proper contact tracing and to assist our health officers. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the amendments proposed to Section 59A allows for the use of individually identifiable information or human samples for the purposes of national public health research. It is important that we put in place rigorous safeguards for the use and disclosure of such data to protect the privacy and confidentiality of individuals. What safeguards will the Ministry put in place, and how will the Ministry ensure that third-party researchers adhere to these rules? I will conclude by saying that due to the nature of our economy, Singapore will always be at risk of infectious diseases carried from other countries. The amendments proposed are useful and timely in helping to enhance surveillance and prevent the introduction and spread of infectious diseases within our shores. However, we need to ensure that while we fight against the spread of infectious diseases, we do not inevitably cause irreversible disruptions to everyday life. With that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I support the bill.